a little bit about myself. I'm a licensed structural engineer. I've been in the industry for some time, too many years. And I was in the private sector, then joined Woodworks in 2008, and then American Wood Council in 2012, and now with Structurlam. So I bring a unique perspective to this presentation with my background in consulting, as well as in the wood industry and codes and standards, and now with manufacturing supply. That I may ask you questions through the presentation just to give it a little bit more interaction as much as you can with a webinar. What is mass timber? It's the same as heavy timber, A. It's defined in the 2015 IBC, B. It's the same as stick wood framing construction, only bigger, C. I don't know, that's why I'm here, D. And E, huh? I guess D and E are kind of on the same level. B is defined. Good feedback. Thank you very much for participating in this. Gives me an idea of where we're going on this presentation. One thing to note, and I'll mention it, I'll provide you with the answer as we go through this presentation. So this gives me a good idea on how much in depth I need to go through the presentation. The common answer is it's wood, and it is categorized as heavy timber. So we'll go ahead and clear that out. Maria, if you could with the questions, I think you can do that, and then we'll progress through the presentation. So the presentation is copyrighted by Structurlam. This provides you with a description, and hopefully if you haven't downloaded the presentation, it is provided in the files section of the display for the webinar. But this presentation comes from a unique point of view, which I mentioned previously, of codes and standards representing the wood industry, private sector in consulting. And from my experience of working in the industry, what I am seeing are some of the barriers in mass timber, and really for this specific presentation, what the structural engineer can do to help move and progress the project forward. And it's really key that the structural engineer gets involved in the conceptual phase when they're laying out the grids, et cetera, et cetera. And I'll give you some insight on that when we progress. So what are we talking about when we're talking about mass timber? Here are some examples that Structurlam has been involved with. And we see a lot of the high-tech companies that are really embracing mass timber. This is Microsoft in California using a hybrid system where it's steel and then using CLT panels. And then we have First Tech Credit Union up in the Pacific North, where mass timber has really taken off, and they've been doing quite a lot of mass timber for a while. And notice the system here, and I'll talk about this later, about how we have the beams, and which is a post and beam plank type system. Very efficient system. Oops. And then we have Google also that we're doing a lot of work with. And then Walmart. We partnered with Walmart to have a manufacturing facility in Conway, Arkansas. And we also are doing providing and supplying for their campus in Arkansas as well. One thing I forgot to ask is if you could type in the Q&A, where is everybody in the country? If you could just type your state in the Q&A, that would be great. Give me an idea as well. And then this is a saying that I really like and really appropriate for the time right now is, if the 19th century was a century of steel and the 20th century of concrete, then the 21st century is about engineered timber. And that's really what we're seeing in the industry. As I mentioned, I started with the wood industry in 2008. I've been talking about mass timber since then. I remember the first reaction when I was talking to some folks is, oh, well, wood burns. You know, what can you do with wood? Well, it's a good thing wood burns because that provides fire protection. or fire resistance. But it is, when you think about our industry and innovation going on, this is really an innovative time in our industry and what we can do as structural engineers, not only from the structural standpoint, but climate change and how we can help mitigate carbon levels, et cetera, et cetera.